Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish off today and subsequently this week with a creator request, which is where a band gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their music. Creator request is a fantastic way to learn about upcoming bands, and so far it has not failed me. I have found some fantastic stuff through this program. So, today we have a request coming in from Crash the Calm. It says, we love your channel and the type of reaction videos you do. Was especially a fan of your reaction to Balance and Composure's body language. We are Crash the Calm, and we just premiered a new music video, My Nowhere, on Brooklyn Vegan, the first volume of our 3-part concept record, dropped this past Friday with strong DSP playlisting and radio support coming this week, and would love to hear your take on our release and the opportunity to work with you to expand the song on YouTube. Look forward to hearing from you, Dan from Crash the Calm. So being that these are a bit on the older side, unfortunately my emails, it takes a while to get to these requests. The song they requested was a bit of an older one, so I decided to choose a newer one in hopes of helping them promote some of their newer works rather than looking at stuff that's a year older or sometimes even older. So instead we're going to be looking at the night that St. Catherine fell. All right, let's dive into this and see what's going on. All right, we're in 6 right here. A lot of tension and energy despite the slow tempo. That driving energy of having the electric guitar on 1 through 4. Interesting choice to accent 3 and 5. And his group droning. Juxtaposition between the calm music and that real raw screaming. I like that call and response with the electric guitars. Yeah. This constant rising. Interesting. It's very rare for me to get goosebumps listening to music. I kind of am envious of people who can. Or I should say, people who can easily. There are definitely some things that I've heard that I would love to feel in that way for it to have such an effect on my body, physically. But it's such a rare occurrence for me. This is one of the songs that did it. And I've seen reactors, they always like put up their hands and they're like their arms are covered in goosebumps and like it's like I envy that. Mine is more of like a tingle going down the spine. Um it is a wild response that I don't get often. And this the first chorus really brought that in. It's a combination, I think, of the rather down to earth musicality of what's going on with the instruments, paired with a very raw, visceral vocal style. And the two of them combined just makes a song that feels very human. And it really engages me. Uh, you know, Usually I have a lot more stuff to say during reactions, but I was completely enthralled with this, forgetting entirely that I was in front of a camera doing a reaction and just being sucked into this performance, this story that they're telling. Um, it is just, yeah, phenomenal, phenomenal work on that front. Um, so to dive into some of the stuff that's going on here, I guess we should start with the music and work up to the vocals, because I think the vocals and the lyrics are what I'm going to have the most to say about. Musically, there's a lot of beauty in the simplicity. This is a fantastic way to end Mathcore Week. Returning to music that I find more palatable and more digestible after listening to a lot of chaos this week. And it's very possible that just that juxtaposition is also part of what I'm really enjoying about this. I happen to be in a mindset where I want something a little more simple after having my brain turn to mush with so many tracks this week. But musically, there's like I said, beauty in the simplicity. We start off with a simple 6/8 guitar strumming along with emphasis on downbeats. There's a little bit of, well, not on downbeats, on 1 and 4, I think is where the emphasized notes were. And we then bring in some drums. And again, it's very light, very spacious. There's also a lot of tom work going on in this entire song, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later. But here in the opening, if I remember correctly, we do have this more spacious lower end kind of drumming. And then eventually we bring in the vocals and another guitar, and we bring about this foundational work that to me, again, is um, very down to earth. There's nothing wild going on it. We have very, I don't want to say standard, but conventional chord progression. We have a lot of notes that are resting in the lower end. This is something that I think is really important because the song feels very pulled down. As far as pitch goes and range, there's not a lot of stuff at the top end in this track. It feels lower to the ground. It feels weightier. And I think a lot of that also ties into the overall lethargy of the song. It is a slower tempo and it has this swaying feeling because of the 6/8. We have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and it has these sort of wide pulses at 1 and 4, which also help us to feel the song more of the 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a very slow tempo when you think about this in a 4/4 idea. And a lot of this weight is characterized in the note choices, in the timbres, in the tempo, in the time signature. It all comes together to this song that does not feel like it wants to move on. It just sort of wants to exist where it is. And yeah, I mentioned that there's this really interesting pulse in the first verse where we had this left hand electric guitar that was coming in on beat 1, and we had this big emphasis, and then there was an emphasized staccato note, I believe it was, on beat 4, so you get the and then you have the last half of 4, 5, and 6 to just have space against this, and it feels like it's coming in as a sort of warning, like an alarm, right? You get these bursts of noise and then they turn off, and then bursts of noise and turn off, sort of like a warning alarm. And that played against this really rooted, grounded, constantly strumming, constantly playing. No breaks. There are rests. Like I said, it's a sparse composition in this section, but there's no extended amounts of rest. It's a full designed phrase rather than this left hand guitar, which is on for half of the bar and off for the last half, and fluctuates between the noise and the silence. And it brings about some of the extra tension. There is tension in the chord progression itself, but this is the first moment that I really feel the energy rising. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's calmness. There's a sort of peace in the opening guitar riff, the first thing that we hear, but that there's something tense or uneasy about it. And I wasn't really presented yet what it is, and then we get this guitar that comes in, and this is the warning. This is telling us that something big's going to happen, and we go through this for a little bit, and then the chorus comes in, and dude, those vocals. I said I'm going to talk about them in a little bit, but they dominate the sound. But under it, we bring in the electric guitar, and we kind of get rid of a lot of the space. We get rid of a lot of the sparseness. It is a fuller section. We also see a change from lower notes to some higher notes. The guitars move up about a half an octave, maybe a full octave, and electric guitars constantly strumming chords. They're doing foundational chord progression work. There really isn't any lead line in the guitar. The bass is laying down some foundational ideas, and the drummer is really opening up. Right, we're getting some less space between these hits, and there's more cymbal work in here. It's not just that sort of rooted tom idea. And then we go into the verse and we see a repetition of the previous verse. However, there's a call and response to that warning guitar. We get the beats 1 through 4, where we get this long held out note. And then there's a little lick that happens on 4 through 6 center right panned. I don't think it was full right, like the warning is full left, but it's further to the right than the warning is. And that only happens a couple of times. It is not something that happens through the entire verse. I think it only happens for the first 4 bars, and then the last 4 it leaves, and we have just that warning guitar again. Now, the second chorus I think is interesting, and something notable about it is that the vocals do shift from the harsh vocals into the cleans. We end up hearing cleans in the second half, and it's an interesting transition into them. Again, going to talk about vocals later, but I think it's an interesting part of this section because otherwise I don't remember much different happening here in the instrumentation. We go through the bridge and it sort of bounces back and forth between the two ideas, the sparse and low, and then the more full sound that we get in the chorus, and it leads us into the final chorus, which has a new guitar part. We have a electric guitar line that could be deemed as a melody line. It is not, I mean, it's a very short idea. I don't remember if it's like 2 notes, if it's a 3-note phrase or a 4-note phrase, but it's just kind of bouncing between 2 notes, right? But it provides a juxtaposition, a middle point between the yelling that's dominating this part, sitting on top of everything, and more of the foundational stuff in the middle. It is a middle ground, or sorry, the foundational stuff at the bottom. It is a middle ground that we have not heard before, and it's interesting that they bring this variation in at the very end in a manner that finds a meeting space between the aggression, or not the aggression, the full-on emotion. It doesn't have to be aggressive. I don't think it is. I actually think it comes from a place of sorrow, given how the vocal delivery is. But from this extreme emotion to the more rooted, there's a middle point between them now. And then there's also some really nice bits of harmony. I don't remember if it was in this final chorus or if it was in the bridge, but we had some really nice vocal harmonies that were going on as well that provided a bit of change compared to what we had heard previously with the beginning verse chorus idea. So yeah, overall, just a really great way of doing storytelling in the music and showcasing some elements there. Now, like I said, the vocals to me stole the show here. That's not this. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is that in that final chorus, we also hear the drums at their most moving. I mentioned before that we had a lot of tom work with space in the verses. We brought about cymbals, but there was still a bit of space when we had the choruses. But this final chorus, the drums are going all in. There's barely any space between the notes. This is something that gets shown in the rest of the instrumentation as well. As we get closer to the end of it, there's more intensity, not just in the chords being played or the notes being played or the timbres, having more electric instruments coming in, but also in the frequency of attacks. So, yeah, very cool to hear the drums have this this increasing intensity throughout the entire song. Every time a new section comes in, we hear a version of it that has less and less space. It's more noisy. It's more full in a sense. And I can't believe I almost forgot this. I think it was the bridge had this really interesting idea of rising tension in the pitch. So they would start. I think this was the vocal harmony section too. Start a bit lower and come up, come up, come up, come way up, and hit a high point. Come back down on the next repetition of the melody line. Except we're going to start a couple of notes higher. And when we go up, we're going to land on a note that's a couple of notes higher. Now, this isn't something that stuck around. That idea of always rising doesn't happen. I think it was only the first and second time, and then we kind of stuck with that second line. But this idea of rising intensity through the entire bridge to take us into the final chorus, I think worked phenomenally well. and just being able to inject these ideas of tension outside of, you know, harmonic tension, which I think is very easy to implement. It's basically just dissonance, right? Or creating tension in your chord structure by introducing minor bits of dissonance. Um, and, you know, usually when I talk about spicy chords, it's usually because they're including a little bit of dissonance compared to the root mode of that chord. So, you know, if we'll get into it another time. That starts digging into music theory, and I think it's going to be a bit outside the scope of this video. We could be here a while explaining how to make a spicy chord. um, so yeah, harmonic tension is an easy way to go about it. You just add a little bit of dissonance, but creating tension through rhythmic structure or volume or any other sort of dynamic is a bit more subtle, and it's something you have to build up throughout the song. You can definitely go from 0 to 100 with volume, and you're going to create some tension there. But I think the way that they did it, starting extremely small and rooted and slowly introducing larger ideas and then coming back down, but not as far back down, and then rising again and having this roller coaster where, you know, our falls never quite go all the way back down to the ground. The falls always are a little higher than the last one. So our low points are always, like I said, a little higher than our previous low points, which makes our high points, our peaks, higher than our previous peaks. And I think it's a fantastic way to go about writing a song, especially since it follows a very standard idea of how to write a story. In the rising action ideas, you got to rise action. You know, you got to increase the tension, but then you also have to bring it down to create contrast. But if you want your story to continuously get more and more intense, to have more, for the stakes to get higher, each of these rising incidents have to go higher than your last one, which also means that when you dip down and have your moments to breathe and to have contrast against these rising moments, that the lowest points of those are going to be higher than your previous lowest points. So yeah, they told a story in the music using the same tools or the same layout as a writer would do writing a story for a film or a TV show. Very cool. Now, you know, the next thing I said, vocals, very important. At least for me, the vocals are the highlight here. The music sets the stage, the music sets the tone, and the music tells the story through the intensity, but the lyrics tell the emotion. This is where the humanity of the story comes from. Like I said, we kind of see a grounding element in the music, and I just explained how it brings tension about. But to really bring the human element into it, you they utilize a human instrument to do so. And I think it's just done so well. There is a real human element to the vocals here. I don't know if they're underproduced. I don't know if the person might just be, well, could go either way. I was going to say, I don't know if they're just not as strong as a vocalist as uh, other vocalists I've heard. Maybe they are so strong as a vocalist that they have complete control over their voice and make it sound more down to earth, more, you know, dude next door, garage band kind of singing. But yeah, it has that element of not feeling like it's overproduced, like it's a professional singer who has thousands of hours of training. It sounds like a dude who does a pretty good job of staying on pitch and puts himself into his singing. It's more of a natural ability for him that is not perfect. The edges haven't been sanded down. There's imperfections in the vocal work, but that's the charm. And like I said, it could go either way. He could be you know, very untrained, very rough around the edges, or he could just be a master at controlling his voice and is specifically aiming for this. I don't think it matters one way or the other. The desired effect is what is important, and I believe it has been achieved. But not only do we have that in the clean vocals, we have a heart-breaking, harsh, I don't know what it is. I think it's these little pokes of like a very higher pitched, almost like a sob sound peeking out through the compression. It almost sounds like his singing voice occasionally gets a chance to poke out through the compression, and you can hear that there's pain in it. And the compression is ridiculous. There is so much crackling and destruction to it. It feels like he is in pain singing this. Not even just emotional. I feel like there might even be a physical element to it. And I'm not saying that he is destroying his voice doing this. I'm not saying that he's using poor technique. I'm saying that whatever techniques he's using is giving the idea of this, at least to me. It doesn't feel like this is just an emotional pain. There is a physical element to this as well, and he is beaten up about whatever he's singing about. And I can 100% feel it. And what I absolutely love is the subversion of this when we get to the second chorus, and he has these really high screams and or the harshes. I don't know if they're screams. He has these harshes though, and by the end of it, I'm expecting to keep this intensity and possibly going into a heavy breakdown or a heavy bridge and keeping this power. And instead, the second half of the chorus subverts that and says, yeah, we stayed at 10 last time, we're bringing it back down. And he almost sounds defeated by the end of it. These same words that seem to invoke pain the last time I heard them seem to showcase defeat this time around. And, it also, the visuals, he sells these harsh vocals with his body language, with the faces he makes, with the it's the little things. You can see little muscle spasms. You can see the body shake a little bit when he hits some of these higher notes. Absolutely sells the performance of somebody in pain, screaming their heart out because it's the only thing they have left, and then possibly realizing that that wasn't enough and now they have nothing left, and you bring that defeat in. I don't know what the story of the lyrics are, but I do really enjoy how by the end of the song we have harmonized clean vocals come in, and to me it almost has this idea of community, of a support system, of saying, yeah, whatever this is that's harming you, we're here with you, right? And he's no longer screaming it anymore. He's using his clean vocals, possibly saying that he's on the, on a path of healing, possibly, but it's also a path of at least acknowledgement of one's own shortcomings. As at the end of the song, he continues to repeat, why do I always run from the fire or to the fire? I don't know. Either way, there is an action that he continuously makes, and he's aware that he continuously makes it, and he questions why he can't stop doing it, almost as a form of addiction. Um, so there's an acknowledgement of the problem, which, as anyone will tell you, is the first step to correcting it. And it's done in a clean voice, and he has the group around him supporting these vocals. I really like that. I don't know if that's what the story tells, but that's the story I got out of it without the lyrics. I'm going to take a second to look at the lyrics here and see if maybe it supports any of what I got out of it. But honestly, if I just stopped right here, I'd be happy. I really enjoy what the song, the journey it took me on. But let me dive into these and see what I got. All right, so it seems like it's a person who is in a very bad state as they lost their wife and is in the process of grieving. At least that's kind of what I'm getting through a lot of this. And it also seems as though she died in a fire. And that really isn't noted until the very end of the track. And then he says, why do I keep running from the fire? And I'm not sure what that alludes to. It could be a metaphor for running away from dealing with the grief. It could be a metaphor for running away from the pain, possibly finding a way to, drown the sorrow in some sort of addiction. But I think most of it does line up with what I was saying about a person in great pain, and dealing with said pain, about the human element and the rooted concept in the music, tying this all together to a very human relatable atmosphere and emotion. And pain of a lost one, a loved one lost, is definitely something that most people are going to have to eventually deal with at some time. Um, so yeah, I think they did a fantastic job capturing the elements in every facet of this song, whether it's the vocal delivery, the lyrics themselves, or the musicality of it. It really, every piece of it tells a story. And I think you could look at almost any piece of this, whether it's the vocals, the lyrics, or the music, and get the same message, or at least a majority of the message. And when you piece them together, they amplify everything that the song is doing and everything that the song is uh, experiencing and having the listener experience. So, yeah, fantastic job with this. Crash the Calm. I really don't have anything negative to say about it. The production is fire. The song hit me very emotionally, and the rare effect of pulling me out of the moment of recording a reaction and making me forget that I'm doing this and not just listening to something cool I found on my own. Um, yeah, this is definitely going on my list and my listen list. I'm gonna have to check out the rest of these. What do you say they were? Uh, Concept albums, three of them. Yeah, a trilogy of concept albums. What is this? Your first? You have 300 subscribers. This is your first go at writing something, and you've made a. Your first bet was to do a three-piece or a three-album concept idea and just nailing it. What kind of inhuman people are you? I'm definitely interested in checking out more if any of it is on the same level of this. Even if it's a little worse than this, it's still going to be phenomenal. So, yeah, Crash the Calm. Don't be surprised if you find some Bandcamp purchases from me. I hope you have Bandcamp, anyways. I guess I'll figure out later. I still want to pick up your stuff, though. Those are my thoughts, though, on Crash the Calm's The Night That St. Catherine Fell. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that stood out to you. If you agree with me on stuff. If you disagree with me on stuff. Let me know how it affected you. If you had the same visceral reaction I did or not. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. In there is, well, it's a link for Linktree. You can check out my stuff, but also I have all the social links for Crash the Calm. If you want to find them on any social media or find out where the music is to further listen to it, that's all there. And above the description box, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. That's it for this week. As I mentioned in the Hirsch Effect video earlier today, I'm going to try to get a previously recorded live stream released tomorrow. That'll be the second one from January, so we're catching up. On Sunday, we have a Patreon live stream. If you're a critic tier or higher, we're going to start that at 11 a.m. EST, just like every Sunday. And then Monday, we're going to start our next week's theme at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.